Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 461. Taiji Rule, Cosmic Force? Master's parents and relatives did not break through to the Unity Path stage. Li Qing hesitated, then spoke softly. Not having reached the Unity Path stage, and relying on the lifespan of the refining void period, they could live for at most 100 or 200,000 years. It's impossible for them to be alive now, which means they would have passed away long ago. Are they all gone? Lin Yuan, upon hearing this, showed no surprise and sighed inwardly. This was actually the most common outcome. The breakthrough from the 6th stage martial Tao to the 7th stage is immensely difficult, just as the transition from the refining void period to the Unity Path stage is equally challenging. Though Jun Dongjin had a mutated heavenly spiritual root, one of the rarest talents in the central divine China world, it was not so outstanding in the spirit realm. In the spirit realm, apart from judging talents based on spirit roots, many other Tao bodies exist. Jun Dongjin cultivated to the peak of refining void, but ultimately failed in his attempt to reach the Unity Path stage and was severely injured. Mu Liener did not cultivate to the peak of refining void, and neither did Jun Xiaoyao nor Jun Jilan. With Lin Yuan's contingency plans left behind, they successfully entered refining void and ascended to the spirit realm, but their cultivation progress slowed afterward. How have they been? Lin Yuan inquired. They've been quite well. The Daoed Immortal Sect has not mistreated them. Li Qing immediately said, not daring to harbor any designs against Jun Dongjin and the others before knowing Lin Yuan's whereabouts. After all, keeping Jun Dongjin and others was not even considered a burden for the vast Daoed Immortal Sect, and the Zongqing Immortal even summoned them several times to preach Dao. But transitioning from refining void to unity is not something that can be achieved with just a couple of sermons or by giving enough cultivation resources. Otherwise, everyone in the Daoed Immortal Sect would be a true immortal, not just the dozens of true immortal anchoring it. Before my parents passed away, they asked me not to give up looking for you. Li Qing spoke with a somewhat heavy voice. What a pity. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. If he had traveled through time a bit earlier, perhaps the outcome would have been different. In the future, if I can become a supreme, Lin Yuan thought silently to himself. Supreme beings wield complete control over time and space rules, able to reverse time and lift previously deceased beings back to life. Before their deaths, Jun Dongjin, Jun Jilan, and the others reached the refining void stage similar to 6th rank in life essence strength. Even without deliberately merging their life essence with the spirit realm, having lived so long, their essence had already been recorded by the spirit realm. As long as Lin Yuan became a supreme being and arrived in this world, reversing the flow, he should be able to resurrect them. But Lin Yuan could completely use those few breaths to extend their lifespans. The methods to extend lifespan in the spirit realm are useless, but in the main world, there are plenty. As for the world's backlash after resurrecting a life, reviving a few 6th rank lives and the resulting backlash is trivial for a supreme being. Also, the descendants of Master's elder brother and second sister in the Daoed Immortal Sect are doing quite well. Li Qing seemed to remember something and promptly spoke. With Lin Yuan's connection, Li Qing, comparable to a 7th stage martial Tao, being a pillar for the Jun family's descendants. As long as Li Qing is alive, it's unlikely that the Jun family's descendants would fare poorly, and that Zongqing Immortal is also watching. Is that so? Lin Yuan glanced at Li Qing. Master, would you like me to invite a few outstanding descendants from the Jun family to come visit you? Li Qing tentatively asked. That works. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment. After all, having some karma with the Jun family, now that he had returned, Meeting them was not a bad idea. All right. Li Qing closed his eyes and began making contact immediately. As a major general for Dao Immortal sect in external campaigns, Li Qing naturally had ways to directly communicate with the Dao Immortal sect. About Master's news, should we keep it hidden? After conveying the message, Li Qing cautiously asked, Songqing Immortal once told me that if there's any news of Master, I must tell him immediately. That Songqing Immortal is still alive? Lin Yuan was interested. This old fellow's performance still quite satisfied him. At least he didn't kick him when he was down when he wasn't around. According to the information Lin Yuan had, since the days in the central divine China world, that Songqing Immortal had already lived for several 100,000 years. With hundreds of thousands of years passing by, even a Unity Realm true immortal at its peak probably should have expired. That Songqing Immortal transcended the heart demon tribulation, so he has a much longer lifespan than a normal true immortal. Li Qing immediately replied. To advance from Unity stage to Tribulation Transcendence stage, an immortal cultivator needs to transcend two tribulations. One is the bodily tribulation. Another is the heart-spirit tribulation. The latter is similar to the heart-demon tribulation. For an immortal cultivator, the most difficult to transcend is the bodily tribulation. Most methods of the immortal cultivator do not focus on the body. Faced with the 5 declines of man during bodily tribulation, bodily decay, there are hardly any ways to resist. I see. Lin Yuan nodded. A Unity Realm true immortal who had passed through the heart-spirit tribulation, although still far from a tribulation-transcending celestial king, had their spirit soul and will transformed. Their soul's lifespan was significantly extended. And for a true immortal, a decaying body can simply be replaced. As long as the soul lives on, they can be regarded as immortal. No need to hide it, Lin Yuan said calmly. Hide it? Why hide it? Now that Lin Yuan had fully regained his strength and even advanced further, even among tribulation-transcending celestial kings, he was considered an extraordinary powerhouse, not inferior to a supreme immortal king. Under such circumstances, there was absolutely no need to hide. Chapter 462. Yes.
Li Qing responda.
After chatting with Li Qing for a few more moments, Lin Yuan turned towards the other two who were sitting upright, Nie Yun and Shan Yang. These two Martial Dao 7th-rank cultivators were the promising new talents in the Martial Tao cultivation system. They had managed to step into the 7th rank with the guidance left by Lin Yuan. Their martial talents were indisputably remarkable. You haven't received my guidance before, which is indeed not easy. Inside the jade slip is my refined understanding of the 7th rank cultivation, which should be of help to you. Lin Yuan's mind stirred, and 2 white jade slips appeared in front of Nie Yun and Shan Yang. These 2 cultivators, in their 7th rank cultivation, had not gone deep, although they had stepped onto the path of the 7th rank, which Lin Yuan considered misleading. But there was still a chance for them to reshape their paths. As for you, Lin Yuan turned to Li Qing. Li Qing was already at the peak of the 7th rank. Reshaping her martial foundation was not a simple matter. However, Lin Yuan had already formulated an idea, and merely by observing Li Qing for a while, his against heaven's understanding allowed him to create a suitable method for her to reshape her cultivation. Against heaven's understanding, depending on the heights Lin Yuan reached, who was now at the 8th layer mid-period, creating a mere 7th rank reshaping method hardly wasted any effort. Thank you, Master. Li Qing expressed her immense gratitude. After reaching the peak of the 7th rank, she faintly sensed that there seemed to be no path ahead. If nothing unexpected occurred, she would likely stop at this point in her life. She was not a martial ancestor with earth-shattering talent who could create possibilities in the impossible. Li Qing's ability to step into the 7th rank was due not only to luck but also significantly to the instruction left by Lin Yuan. Nie Yun and Shan Yang left the martial temple hall with stirring emotions. Martial ancestor. They had actually met the legendary martial ancestor today. And the strength of the martial ancestor, to say nothing of comparing with a tribulation-transcending celestial king, was at least much stronger than that of the Songqing Immortal of the Dao Immortal sect who was half-step into the tribulation-transcendent stage. Our martial Dao can also give birth to such powerful figures? Shanyang was invigorated, and he returned to his dwelling with Nyayun, unable to calm down for a long time. The existence of the martial ancestor showed them that martial Tao was not a dead end. Like the immortal path, it was also a great avenue to the heavens. Right? The jade slip from the martial ancestor. Nyayun seemed to remember something and reminded him. Just now in the martial temple hall, the martial ancestor had given each of them a jade slip. He said it would help with their forthcoming martial Tao cultivation. Right? The jade slip.
Shanyang immediately reacted.
He took out the white jade slip directly. The jade slip looked ordinary. It was hardly any different from those used by low-ranking Qi refinement and foundation establishment cultivators. But to Shanyang, a seventh-stage martial Tao cultivator, he revered it as if it were a sacred relic, holding it before his eyes. Finally, Nyayun and Shanyang looked at each other and simultaneously began to read the content of the jade slip. It only took a moment for their expressions to change dramatically, their hearts stirring with profound emotions. So this is what seventh-stage martial Tao cultivation was supposed to be. So seventh-stage martial Tao cultivation could also be approached like this. So seventh-stage martial Tao cultivation should indeed be like this. The content within the jade slip was not abundant, but the two seventh-rank martial Taoists spent a whole day reading it. They pondered over every word, and with each contemplation, they discovered different meanings. A day later, Shanyang suddenly came to his senses, looking at the jade slip in his hand and muttered, "Our martial Tao is also a great avenue to the heavens." Nyayun, radiating an inspired aura and with a glint in his eyes, exclaimed, "The martial ancestor truly is a divine being, creating martial Tao from nothing, and now elucidating so much about the seventh-rank chapter." The two people looked at each other again, stood up, straightened their robes, faced the martial temple hall, and respectfully bowed 3 times. "Thank you, martial ancestor, for the benevolence of passing the teachings. Thank you, martial ancestor, for the benevolence of passing the teachings. Thank you, martial ancestor, for the benevolence of passing the teachings." Martial Temple Hall. Lin Yuan sat there, his expression contemplative. Guiding the 3 seventh-stage martial Tao cultivators was a trivial task for him. At that moment, however, Lin Yuan was pondering another matter. Huailong Palace? Lin Yuan said to himself. Huailong Palace, a Tao integration level force in the Zhejiang domain, had been at war with the Taoed immortal sect for tens of thousands of years. 2 major forces were at odds over the essence of heavenly water, already at each other's throats. Every few hundred to 1,000 years they would wage war, and nearly 10 Unity Realm true immortals would join the battle. Li Qing and 2 other 7th-stage martial Taoists were mostly on the battlefield with Huailong Palace. Initially, when Jun Dongjin ascended to the spirit realm, at the peak of the refining void period, he was severely injured by a draconic ancient saint from the Huailong Palace. Had it not been for that severe injury, Jun Dongjin might have had a chance to step into the Unity Path stage. Of course, it was only a possibility, and in fact, he was likely still doomed to fail in breaking through. But at least it would have lightened the backlash, allowing him to live for several hundred more years. Above the spirit realm, from high to low, there were 9 heavens. Each heaven contained some kind of phenomenon, either a manifestation of the origin rule of the great Tao or a sort of miracle related to the essence of the world. The 4th heaven, a figure, seeming like a burning sun, stood with his back to all. It was indeed Lin Yuan's Taiyang divine spirit. With my current strength, I can only stop at the 4th heaven. As for the 5th heaven, Lin Yuan looked up at the sky, where dark clouds gathered densely, intertwined with numerous pale purple thunderbolts. To enter the 5th heaven, one must surpass the 9-fold thunder tribulation, which is far more terrifying than the bodily tribulation in the Unity breakthrough to tribulation transcendence. Although Unity realm true immortals can roam the 9 layers of the spirit realm, such powerful beings usually only wander in the 1st and 2nd heavens. As for the 3rd heaven, they basically can't enter, and the 4th heaven is the domain of tribulation transcending celestial kings. The 5th heaven? Probably only the powerful among the immortal kings can withstand the 9-fold thunder tribulation and enter. The The Taiyang divine spirit, after all, is just a divine spirit, far less powerful than its original body, unless Taiyin and Taiyang are merged into the Taiji divine spirit. Otherwise, recklessly enduring the ninefold thunder tribulation risks the collapse of the divine spirit. Enough! Wait a bit longer. I can feel that the fusion and transformation of the Taiyin rule and Taiyang rule are almost complete. When the time comes, my body of the divine spirit will surely see a great increase in combat power. Lin Yuan felt hopeful in his heart. Ever since he reopened his inner world, the Taiyin rule had merged with the Taiyang rule, forming a light sphere suspended above the sky of the inner world, slowly transforming. Lin Yuan had a feeling that once the transformation was complete, the Taiyin and Taiyang rules would undergo an unbelievable change. Inside the cave dwelling, Lin Yuan was cultivating. At that moment, Lin Yuan quietly opened his eyes. Whoosh! Inner world. The incarnation of Lin Yuan's consciousness appeared. He looked up at the light sphere composed entirely of the power of Taiyin and Taiyang. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt a stirring in his heart, vaguely sensing that the transformation within the light sphere was reaching its final stages. Crack! A shattering sound, audible only to Lin Yuan, suddenly rang beside his ears. He saw the light sphere above the sky gradually cracking open. Threads of new power, or rather rules, slowly began to reveal themselves. This power was black and white. At first glance, it seemed no different from before, but at the infinitely microscopic level it was the same. This meant a complete fusion. The newly born power or rules were no longer a combination of Taiyin and Taiyang, but inherently so. The flawless power of Yin and Yang transformed into the perfect Taiji power, quickly merging into the inner world. Lin Yuan's consciousness returned to reality. He raised his right hand, the pure yin-yang power emitting a dreamlike halo, slowly affecting the surroundings. At this moment, Lin Yuan felt an absolute sense of control. Within his range of perception, he could control everything. This feeling, how similar is it to the cosmic force of the invincible eighth layer? Lin Yuan's eyes brightened. The invincible power of the eighth layer in the main world, although not replicable, had some features recorded. Almost all the cosmic forces comprehended by those invincible at the eighth layer had one thing in common. That is control. Absolute control. The fusion of Taiyin and Taiyang into Taiji, is it the embryonic form of some kind of cosmic force? Lin Yuan felt elated, and at this moment, even without relying on the inner world that spans 26 million miles, without relying on his many innate divine abilities and secret techniques, he could still clash with other invincible beings of the eighth layer. Because he was now an invincible of the eighth layer. Chapter 463. All are provisions. Who would have thought that the cosmic force that countless eighth layer powerhouses in the main world yearn for? I actually grasped its rudimentary form during my third rank and fourth rank? Lin Yuan couldn't help but feel emotional in his heart. The so-called cosmic force not only enhances combat power for eighth layer powerhouses. In the future, if one could step into the ninth rank or even higher, the transformation of cosmic force would be even greater. For eighth layer evolvers to comprehend cosmic force, regardless of whether they can succeed, it would undoubtedly take a considerable amount of time, possibly tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. But the cosmic force comprehended at the eighth layer level, besides the enhancement in combat power, does not help much in breaking through to the ninth layer. Yet, in the main world, there are still a great number of powerhouses of various clans who wish to walk the path of the invincible at the eighth layer. This seems quite incredible, for after all, spending this time on fusion rules might give one a better chance of stepping into the ninth layer. In fact, if one can comprehend cosmic force at the eighth layer, should they be able to break through to the ninth layer in the future, they would be able to walk further along the ninth layer's path. Unfortunately, among eighth layer powerhouses, those who have comprehended cosmic force are too few. And even among those eighth layer individuals who have comprehended cosmic force, the number that eventually step into the ninth layer is even rarer. Out of tens of thousands of eighth layer powerhouses, it is considered extremely lucky if one who comprehends cosmic force manages to step into the ninth layer. My Taiji force. Lin Yuan carefully felt his own cosmic force. The transformed Taiji force was no longer divided into Tai-yin and Tai-yang. It seemed innate and flawless. They all say that cosmic force cannot be replicated, my Taiji force. Lin Yuan reflected inwardly before finally shaking his head. This statement is essentially correct. Lin Yuan's Taiji force is derived from the fusion of Tai-yin and Tai-yang. Even if, in future generations, a martial Dao cultivator with supreme talent in Tai-yin and Tai-yang emerges, just like Lin Yuan, mastering both Tai-yin and Tai-yang. It's debatable whether they could fuse Tai-yin and Tai-yang, and even if they truly managed to do so, the power formed would most likely not be Taiji force. Lin Yuan's Taiji force was not created with equal proportions of Tai-yin and Tai-yang, but rather adjusted according to his own adaptability. Only then did the new Taiji force come into being. Future martial Dao cultivators, even if they fuse Tai-yin and Tai-yang, the force they create will not be Lin Yuan's Taiji force. With my current strength unleashing full power, I should be able to easily suppress other invincible eighth layers, but to say defeat or even kill. Lin Yuan thought about it for a while and felt it was unrealistic. After grasping the Taiji force, Lin Yuan's understanding of such cosmic force deepened even further. Even if Lin Yuan used all his trump cards, at most he could only suppress. Forcing the opponent to flee would be difficult to achieve. Take Lin Yuan's Taiji force as an example. Once he fully defended, it was almost invulnerable to myriad laws. Even 10 invincible eighth layers might not be able to break through the defense. This is why in the main world, those eighth layer powerhouses who have comprehended some kind of cosmic force are called invincible. This is the legend of the invincible at the eighth layer. Take it slow. I feel that there is still much room for refinement in my Taiji force. Lin Yuan's thoughts converged. In the main world, those invincible at the eighth layer who have comprehended cosmic force tend not to continue exploring it but focus all their energy on the fusion rules instead. Having already spent a tremendous amount of time comprehending cosmic force, to continue wasting time, the hope of breaking through to the ninth layer becomes even more bleak. Without breaking through to the ninth layer, even an invincible eighth layer won't have a longer lifespan than those at the peak of the eighth layer. The nine heavens. The fourth heaven. Lin Yuan's Taiyang Divine Spirit and Tai-yin Primordial Spirit appeared simultaneously. They immediately began to merge. The flawless Taiji Primordial Spirit reappeared. Compared to the previous Taiji Primordial Spirit, this one was purer and had a more stable influence on space. Lin Yuan even faintly felt that time was also slightly affected. This sensation? Lin Yuan looked around. In Xianyao City, even though Lin Yuan had grasped the Taiji force, a kind of cosmic force, he wouldn't attempt anything risky for fear that a slight mishap might lay waste to the entire city. But here within the nine heavens, there were no such concerns. The nine heavens were vast and boundless, each layer as large as the spirit realm, and here the spirit realm refers not to the 3,000 Dao provinces, but to the entirety of the spirit realm. Moreover, due to environmental reasons, only true immortal-level powerhouses could hope to ascend to the nine heavens, and even then only to the first and second layers. In the vast expanse of the nine heavens, unless by specific arrangement, it is very difficult to encounter another person. Therefore, Lin Yuan could act without any worries here. Boom! Terrible power began to spread in all directions. The full eruption of Taiji force was like a primordial beast, wildly stirring everything in the fourth heaven. What a thrill! Lin Yuan laughed out loud, finally understanding the confidence of those invincible at the eighth layer in the main world. This power that reigns above the eighth layer can easily become addictive. The strength of my current Taiji primordial spirit is not lesser than that of an invincible eighth layer, and due to the nature of being an energy and spirit body, it is much more troublesome than ordinary invincible eighth layers. Lin Yuan had an accurate assessment of his primordial spirit. The primordial spirit is not corporeal, unable to benefit from the augmentation of the mysterious gourd to the inner world, but it also has the advantage of the primordial spirit, which is immunity to most physical damage. And since the primordial spirit is an ethereal body, it is elusive and unpredictable. In the main world, those invincible beings of energy life at the eighth layer are more dreaded than ordinary invincible eighth layers. Chapter 464. Continue to explore the true limit of the power of Taiji. Lin Yuan struck out recklessly, and the terrifying wave of force began to shake the entire fourth heaven, and even affected the third and second heavens below. 9 heavens. Second layer of heaven. A peak Tao integration true immortal was leisurely roaming this layer of heaven with a descendant he cherished. The 9 divine heavens of the spirit realm are extremely special, often visited by true immortal level powerhouses. Occasionally, they bring their progeny. For beings below true immortals, experiencing the mysteries of the 9 heavens is a great opportunity and fortune. In the second layer of heaven, some spectacles and phenomena often appear. Tomorrow, observe carefully and commit it to memory. This will be greatly beneficial for your future cultivation path, said the Peak Tao Integration True Immortal, a white-browed elder, chuckling as he stroked his beard. Understood, ancestor, replied a young disciple, swallowing nervously as he tried to look around and memorize everything he saw. After a while, ancestor, this 9 heavens is really huge, isn't it? The disciple couldn't help but exclaim. The 9 divine heavens of the spirit realm are vast and boundless. This is just the second heaven. Above are the third and fourth heavens. The Peak Tao Integration True Immortal patiently explained. However, only those at the half-step tribulation stage can attempt to climb to the third heaven, and as for the fourth heaven, it is the realm of tribulation transcending celestial kings. The white-browed elder sighed. Although he was at the peak of Tao integration, the tribulation stage was still far beyond his reach. The mental tribulation and bodily tribulation were 2 significant barriers that obstructed countless true immortals. The white-browed elder was lost in thought for a moment and was about to speak again when his expression suddenly changed. What is that? The white-browed elder looked up. It was the area of the third layer of heaven. At that moment, a terrifying fluctuation was traveling from the third heaven to the second heaven. Like the drums of the divine, mighty and powerful, the clouds of the second heaven dispersed and the space constantly rippled. This, the white-browed elder's face showed shock. In the 9 heavens, even a true immortal peak powerhouse like himself could at best affect an area of 10,000 miles, but now, merely the aftershock of a force was penetrating down to the second heaven? Ancestor, is there a half-step immortal king making a move in the third heaven? The disciple by his side trembled, and if not for the protection of the white-browed elder, he would probably have been scared into sitting on the ground. The aftershock of a higher layer's power swept down like divine might. It's not the third heaven. It's a higher layer than the third heaven. The white-browed elder carefully sensed for a while, his face slightly pale. As a peak true immortal, although he couldn't climb to the third heaven, he could still judge the source of the aftershocks. A higher layer than the third heaven? The young disciple was confused for a moment. That must mean an immortal king, at least a tribulation-transcending celestial king, is making a move. The white-browed elder spoke with difficulty, and in his heart, he had another speculation. Transmitting aftershocks to another layer was not something an ordinary immortal king could do. It might even be the famed supreme immortal king. In my lifetime, to see a supreme immortal king making a move? The white-browed elder was emotionally stirred. As a peak true immortal who had traveled 3,000 daos for many ages, he had a chance to witness a tribulation-transcending celestial king. But a supreme immortal king? That was the transcendent among celestial kings. Most true immortals never saw one in their lifetime. Shenwang Domain.
Dao de Immortal Sect.
Li Zhu sent me a message? A no-nonsense-looking woman said, her face changing slightly as she looked towards her 2 peers.
Li Zhu.
Li Zhu's personality means he wouldn't contact us without something important, she said. Quickly check. Could it be something unexpected has happened with the war against Huailong Palace? The 2 peers realized the gravity of the situation. The 3 of them were the most outstanding descendants of Jun Xiaoyao. They were Jun Haiqiu, Jun Nangong, and Jun Yunxuan. In the spirit realm's Dao Immortal sect, the Mu family was a relatively strong lineage, but the Jun family, at least until people like Jun Dongjin ascended, there was no Jun family. After hundreds of thousands of years, With the efforts of the Jun family lineage and the support of Li Qing, the Jun family managed to establish itself in the immortal sect. I'll check now. Jun Haiqiu immediately opened the message from Li Qing. He quickly skimmed through it.
Li zu Zeis.
Jun Haiqiu paused, somewhat unsure how to proceed. You all take a look. Jun Haiqiu expanded the message. Jun Nangong and Jun Yunxuan quickly read through it. An ancestor from our Jun family has returned? This ancestor, the youngest son of the founder of the East Jin, and the founder of the martial Tao cultivation system? The three of them from Jun Haiqiu's group were stunned. From a young age, they had heard numerous rumors about this Wuji ancestor. It was said that this Wuji ancestor had exceptional talent, and had even negotiated with the Zongxing immortal. Today, the position of the Jun family in the immortal sect was mainly due to the efforts of this Wuji ancestor. Without the Wuji ancestor, the Jun family would not be where it was today. They might not even have ascended from the lower realms in the first place. Wuji ancestor, he has returned? Jun Nangong's expression was somewhat excited. It had been tens of thousands of years, and the ancestors of the Jun family had never given up searching for Wuji ancestor. Even the Daoed immortal sect was searching, but there had never been any news. Many elders of the Jun family even thought that Wuji ancestor might have died long ago. Otherwise, how could there have been no sign of him for so many years? Let's go. We will meet Wuji ancestor now. The longing of my father, my mother, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, the desire of our Jun family's ancestors, has actually been realized in our generation. Jun Yunxuan was equally stirred. Li Qing's search for Wuji ancestor was a search for his own mentor. The Zongxing immortal's search for Wuji ancestor also had other purposes. Only their Jun family sought Wuji ancestor from the bottom of their hearts. Since the progenitor Jun Dongjin, they always treated searching for Wuji ancestor as the ultimate goal. The martial temple is starting to accept disciples on a large scale? Anyone from the human race can be admitted to the martial temple? Upon entering the martial temple, one can receive the teachings of the martial Tao cultivation system? Even those on the immortal path can be admitted to the martial temple. Within Xianyao City, a message spread like a hurricane. Previously, the martial temple had been very strict about accepting disciples. But now, they had relaxed this restriction. Hurry, hurry, hurry. There are free martial Tao teachings being given away. It's said that the 7th stage martial Tao is not inferior to a true immortal of the merged path. The martial Tao cultivation system must have exceptional aspects. Figures quickly lined up outside the martial temple, whispering amongst themselves. Why is the martial temple doing this? Did the 3 ancestors of the martial temple return recently? Could this be their idea? I don't think so. Over such a long period, even when the 3 ancestors were present, the rules of the martial temple hardly changed. Now this sudden relaxation must be due to something unknown happening. Who cares? As long as there are martial Tao teachings being given out, I have nothing to lose. Martial Temple Hall. Lin Yuan sat in the main seat, his gaze sweeping across and taking in all of Xianyao City. Master, is it really okay to release the martial Tao teachings so freely? Li Qing stood respectfully on one side, cautiously inquiring. It's fine, Lin Yuan said nonchalantly. He wanted to spread the martial arts evolution system thoroughly in this realm. Relying solely on the small area of the martial temple, it would be impossible even with 1,000,000 years. Therefore, Lin Yuan decided to release the martial Tao teachings. Of course, these released teachings from the martial temple had been modified by Lin Yuan to enhance one's strength in a short amount of time. For the lower-level cultivators, whether it's the immortal path or martial Tao, or even other cultivation systems, the most crucial aspect is short-term effectiveness. Even for the great Tao, if one cannot get started and it does not bring any improvement, then it is meaningless. As for releasing the martial Tao teachings widely, which might lead to a mix of good and bad cultivators and even result in little loyalty to the martial temple, Lin Yuan did not care. In the myriad realms of the heavens, as long as one entered his martial Tao, no matter the thought process, all would be fodder for the future ultimate leap. Chapter 465. Where is Huailong Palace? Give me a direction. Zhujiang Domain. Huailong Palace. As a force of the Tao integration level, Huailong Palace was in no way weaker than the Tao Immortal sect, and even surpasses it due to being part of the Water Tribe's dragon heritage. The true immortal level combat power of Huailong Palace was even stronger than that of the Tao Immortal sect. Huai Dragon Hall. Dozens of figures gathered here. Huailong Palace was not a human race force, but was governed by the Water Tribe of Dragon descent, with the entire Zhujiang domain essentially being their territory. My fellow members, I have decided that our palace will once again initiate large-scale warfare with the Tao Immortal sect. That heavenly essence of water must belong to our Huailong Palace, declared the Huailong Palace Master. The Huailong Palace Master was a middle-aged female whose true form was that of a mighty dragon. Although her bloodline had not reached the level of true spirit, her combat power was so formidable that she had virtually no rivals in the Unity Path stage. The heavenly essence of water is a treasure of our dragon clan, forcibly occupied by that Tao Immortal sect. This time we must reclaim it, she proclaimed. Palace Master, I shall partake in this large-scale decisive battle as well. I am determined to slay several true immortals of the Tao Immortal sect. An eager voice joined the conversation. Without relying on Shenwang Hall, would the Tao Immortal sect stand a chance against our Eastern Palace? Another chimed in. The assembled figures vied to voice their opinions first. A so-called large-scale war meant an all-out battle to the death between Huailong Palace and the Tao Immortal sect, where each true immortal would enter the fray, and neither force would show any mercy. Such large-scale bloodshed would normally not occur once in tens or hundreds of thousands of years, due to the enormous cost involved. No matter who won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Shenwang Hall would never just watch the Tao Immortal sect fall without intervening. Shenwang Hall. Humph. The Huailong Palace Master let out a cold snort. In past large-scale wars, the interference of Shenwang Hall had prevented her from crushing the Tao Immortal sect. But now, the Huailong Palace Master had already overcome the bodily tribulation, significantly boosting her combat power, and ordinary half-step immortal kings did not even warrant her attention. Even before overcoming the bodily tribulation with her true dragon bloodline, she could match a half-step immortal king in strength. Now that she had become a half-step immortal king, it would probably take 3 or 4 of them to match her. This time, Huailong Palace was resolute in obtaining the heavenly essence of water. The heavenly essence of water had a significant effect on the dragon descendants' transformation into dragons. If Huailong Palace could acquire the heavenly essence of water, their power could rise to a new level in at most 10,000 years. It could even have a considerable beneficial effect on the Huailong Palace Master when facing the ordeal of the mind and spirit tribulation. Normally, a true immortal of the Tao integration stage would have a greater guarantee of overcoming the mind and spirit tribulation than the bodily tribulation. However, being a dragon descendant, the Huailong Palace Master with her strong bodily constitution had an easier time overcoming the bodily tribulation. The ordeal of the mind and spirit tribulation, on the other hand, required much more cautiousness. Tao Immortal Sect. Songqing Immortal sat upon the high platform. What is Huailong Palace scheming now? Songqing Immortal's brow furrowed as he received intelligence from the battlefield that the true immortal level forces of Huailong Palace were beginning to converge towards the battleground. Could it be that they are contemplating another large-scale decisive battle? Songqing Immortal felt a headache coming on. Even with the support from Shenwang Hall, facing Huailong Palace Hall's repeated battles had begun taking a toll on the Tao Immortal sect. Shenwang Hall, the most powerful force in the Shenwang domain, along with another major force, stood with the Tao Immortal sect as the 3 leading giants of the Shenwang domain. The heavenly essence of water. Songqing Immortal thought of the source of the unending conflicts between the Tao Immortal sect and Huailong Palace. Indeed, the heavenly essence of water was not very useful for the human race cultivators. Yet even if it were useless, it absolutely could not fall into the hands of Huailong Palace. Songqing Immortal could imagine that once Huailong Palace acquired the heavenly essence of water, their power would surge within 10,000 years, surpassing the Xianwang domain to become the strongest force among the nearby dozens of great realms. At that time, the Taoed Immortal sect would stand no chance against Huailong Palace. The heavenly essence of water is rooted in the earth's veins. It cannot be moved. It cannot be destroyed. Songqing Immortal sighed softly. Even if he could shatter the heavenly essence of water by force with a treasure, as long as the earth's veins remained, a new heavenly essence of water would be born within a few thousand years. If Huailong Palace dares to launch a large-scale war, they must have a new trump card. Has that Huailong Palace master overcome the bodily tribulation? Songqing Immortal speculated. The Taoed Immortal sect had been at war with Huailong Palace for hundreds of thousands of years, and knew its adversary well. The Huailong Palace master had exhibited clues of being close to passing the bodily tribulation during her last exchange with Songqing Immortal. A true dragon who has overcome the bodily tribulation. I cannot handle her alone. Better inquire about the intentions of Xianwang Hall. Songqing Immortal was no fool and naturally would not take on the pressure of blocking Huailong Palace by himself. A moment later, after communicating with Xianwang Hall, Songqing Immortal's frown deepened again. The master of Xianwang Hall is in seclusion and cannot intervene in the short term? How am I supposed to deal with that accursed dragon? Songqing Immortal immediately felt the difficulty of the situation. I must contact other forces at the Tao integration level across different domains. Songqing Immortal's thoughts refocused, turning his attention to another piece of news. Oh, Jun Wuji, that young fellow has returned? Songqing Immortal's eyes brightened. He had waited arduously for Jun Wuji, originally thinking the young man would ascend to the spirit realm within a few thousand years. But hundreds of thousands of years had passed without any signs. Yet Songqing Immortal had not reneged on his promise because of this. After all, they had made a vow on the Tao. While breaking a Tao vow wasn't impossible, it came with heavy consequences, and to break such a vow for a mere promise was not worth the loss for Songqing Immortal. Hundreds of thousands of years. If that kid is still alive, he must be at least at the peak of the Unity Realm. Perhaps even a half-step Immortal King. Songqing Immortal mused to himself. He was well aware of Lin Yuan's potential. Taking into account Lin Yuan's forced breakthrough into the Tao integration stage in such a low world, he could at least be considered an Immortal King seed. Chapter 466. Of course, even for an Immortal King seed, stepping into the realm of an Immortal King is extremely difficult. Having hope is one thing, but Songqing Immortal didn't believe that Lin Yuan was already a tribulation-transcending celestial king. From the Unity Path stage to the Transcendence Tribulation stage, it is as vast as the heavens. Songqing Immortal had a deep understanding of this. Despite having overcome the mind and spirit tribulation and ranking as a half-step Immortal King, he knew deep down that there was no possibility of him becoming an Immortal King in this lifetime. At most, before the end of his lifespan, Songqing Immortal could attempt to transcend the bodily tribulation. Even if he failed, it would be within expectations. However, if this young one has already reached the half-step Immortal King, wouldn't that relieve some pressure off Huailong Palace? Suddenly, an idea struck Songqing Immortal. When he had negotiated with Lin Yuan, he agreed to allow the spread of martial Tao in the lower realms, and that martial Tao cultivators who reached the 6th rank could ascend to the spirit realm via the Ascension platform as well as receive protection. In return, Lin Yuan would help the Taoed Immortal sect once within his capabilities. Of course, Lin Yuan could refuse, and Songqing Immortal was quite lenient about this, as, after all, he had not given much. So be it. It has been a long time since I went out. This time I'll go see how that young one from back then is doing. Songqing Immortal slowly stood up, and his figure disappeared from its original spot. As for the large-scale decisive battle that Huailong Palace wanted to initiate, a battlefield of such scale required a lot of preparation time. It would not start within at least 10 years. Xianyao City Martial Temple. The silhouette of Songqing Immortal appeared silently. Lifting the restrictions on martial Tao? Songqing Immortal glanced at the recent happenings inside Xianyao City and generally grasped the situation. Step by step, Songqing Immortal walked towards the depths of the martial temple. Around him lingered layers of illusionary realms. As a half-step immortal king who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation, if Songqing Immortal wished, it would be difficult for even someone at the 7th-stage martial Tao peak like Li Qing to detect his presence. Having passed the mind and spirit tribulation, Songqing Immortal had greatly enhanced his soul, easily concealing and twisting others' perceptions. Seems like there's no change. Has that young one really returned? Songqing Immortal arrived at the martial temple hall, looked around casually, and didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Just as Songqing Immortal was considering whether to reveal himself and inquire with Li Qing, the surrounding void became illusionary. Scenes unfolded layer by layer as Songqing Immortal reappeared outside Xianyao City, as if everything he had experienced was just an illusionary realm. What? Songqing Immortal's pupils constricted, and his heart was overwhelmed by a surge of emotions. Illusionary realm? He, a mighty half-step immortal king who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation, had unknowingly fallen into an illusionary realm? Although in terms of combat power, a half-step immortal king who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation was not as strong as one who had passed the bodily tribulation. When it came to mastering the soul illusion, a half-step immortal king who had passed the bodily tribulation could not hold a candle to one who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation. Now, however, Songqing Immortal had unwittingly experienced an illusionary realm. Were it not for the other party intentionally dispersing the illusionary realm, Songqing Immortal would probably still be immersed in it. This is terrifying. What kind of illusionary realm was that? Songqing Immortal's spirit trembled. To casually play with a half-step immortal king like him using a soul illusion, Songqing Immortal had a guess in his mind. Could it be? Songqing Immortal steadied his spirit and entered Xianyao City once again. This time, without using any skills, Songqing Immortal simply walked down the streets and eventually arrived behind the gates of the martial temple. Hesitating for a moment, Songqing Immortal spoke to the guardian. My name is Songqing, here to visit the martial ancestor. Come in, said the guardian, as if he had already received the order, leading Songqing Immortal to stop in front of the martial temple hall. Songqing Immortal paused for an instant and eventually walked into the martial temple hall. The martial temple hall at this moment, compared to what Songqing Immortal had experienced before, was no different. The only change was that there was a figure sitting in the main seat. The figure was a young man. Although he was just sitting there, Songqing Immortal felt as if he was facing the vast spirit realm itself. It's been a long time. Lin Yuan looked at Songqing Immortal and slightly smiled. Are you really Jun Wuji? Songqing Immortal was momentarily stunned. If before, he had only speculated that a tribulation-transcending celestial king was within the martial temple, and that only an exalted immortal king could effortlessly make him fall into an illusionary realm without knowing. Then now, upon seeing Lin Yuan, Songqing Immortal was almost certain of his earlier speculation, and that the tribulation-transcending celestial king was indeed that young one from before.
Yun Wuti.
You could say so, Lin Yuan nodded with a smile. Although in a different body, his true spirit consciousness was the same, making this similar to the reincarnation of a true immortal of the merged path.
Yun Wuti.
The name stirred tremors in Songqing Immortal's heart. Even though he had long regarded Jun Wuji as a genius of the immortal king seed level, facing the now truly immortal king Jun Wuji, Songqing Immortal still felt an inner tumult. Immortal king. That was a tribulation-transcending celestial king. Even those who were hopeful to become an immortal king, the seeds of an immortal king, were only hopeful to become one. Perhaps, among dozens of immortal king seeds, there would be one who could become an immortal king, right? Take a seat. Don't just stand there, Lin Yuan said casually. When Songqing Immortal approached Xianyao City, Lin Yuan had already sensed him. Later, when he found out that Songqing Immortal intended to sneak into the martial temple undetected, Lin Yuan conveniently dragged him into the illusionary realm. It was a sort of greeting. Yes. No, I'd rather stand. Songqing Immortal quickly reacted, not daring to take a seat. What a joke. To sit with a tribulation-transcending celestial king? Songqing Immortal was acutely aware of his own status. He wasn't Lin Yuan's junior, nor had he conferred any significant favors on Lin Yuan. The only thing he did right was that, over the years, he had always kept his promises, but that was what he ought to do. At this moment, Songqing Immortal felt immensely relieved. After Jun Dongjin and others ascended to the spirit realm thousands of years ago, some in the Immortal sect voiced their opposition and wished to stop favoring the Jun family with resources. Back then, Songqing Immortal directly refused them. Firstly, the resources allocated to the Jun family were but a drop in the ocean for the Dao Immortal sect at that time, and Songqing Immortal didn't care about the myopic concerns of those people in the sect over such matters. Secondly, Songqing Immortal was still looking forward to Jun Wuji's ascension to the spirit realm. As time passed and after Songqing Immortal's unreserved refusals, other people in the sect dared not bring up the matter again. You have done well these years. Lin Yuan nodded. At least he did no injustice to the people of the Jun family and had protected the martial Dao evolutionary path. It's my duty, my duty. Songqing Immortal immediately replied. From Lin Yuan's words, he realized that the other party knew all that he had done over the years. Because of this, Songqing Immortal was even more afraid. Had he made even a slight mistake back then, he would probably be facing the wrath of a tribulation-transcending celestial king right now. Indeed, such wrath was something that neither the entire Shenhuang domain nor Dongyun Tao province could bear. Speak. What do you want me to help with? Lin Yuan asked directly. The Dao Immortal sect had treated the Jun family well and protected the martial path evolutionary path. As part of the negotiation conditions, he needed to lend a hand if it was within his power. What kind of help? Upon hearing this, Songqing Immortal's spirit suddenly surged. Almost instantly, Songqing Immortal thought of asking Lin Yuan to help him through the bodily tribulation. But as soon as this thought emerged, Songqing Immortal dismissed it. Whether it be mind tribulation or bodily tribulation, external forces had almost no effect. One had to rely on oneself. Otherwise, why would tribulation-transcending celestial kings be so rare in the spirit realm? Not to mention others, the offspring and friends of those kings should have been able to step into the stage of tribulation transcendence too. From this, one can deduce that even an immortal king could hardly interfere with bodily tribulation or mind tribulation. Even if one could intervene, it would come with a dire price, not in line with the within my power he had promised. I hope. Countless thoughts flashed through Songqing Immortal's mind. In his life, other than himself, the thing he cared most about was the Dao Immortal sect. Currently, the biggest crisis facing the Dao Immortal sect was the Huailong Palace. Against the Huailong Palace master who had transcended the bodily tribulation, Songqing Immortal couldn't think of any way to deal with him. I hope that the martial ancestor could intervene in the Huailong Palace matter. Songqing Immortal steadied his mind and spoke respectfully. Huailong Palace, huh? Lin Yuan nodded. Even if Songqing Immortal hadn't mentioned it, he wouldn't have let the Huailong Palace go. According to Li Qing, it was the mighty ones of Huailong Palace who had gravely injured Jun Dongjin back then, which led to his failed breakthrough later on. Lin Yuan rose to his feet and walked out of the martial temple hall. Songqing Immortal followed immediately. Martial ancestor, the Huailong Palace is a heritage of the Water Tribe's dragon descendants, and its master has the true dragon bloodline. He should have transcended the bodily tribulation. And there's the Zhujiang domain. It's said to be related to a tribulation-transcending dragon king. Songqing Immortal quickly briefed Lin Yuan on the strength of Huailong Palace. But halfway through, Lin Yuan interrupted him. He asked directly, "Where is Huailong Palace? Give me a direction." Chapter 467 Dragon Palace in the Palm. In which direction is Huailong Palace? Songqing Immortal was stunned for a moment, not understanding the meaning behind Lin Yuan's words. Was he intending to personally visit Huailong Palace? Indeed, as a tribulation-transcending celestial king, once he personally arrived at Huailong Palace, even if that palace master were stubborn, he would have to bow his head obediently. In the vast spirit realm, no true immortal dared to defy the will of an immortal king. True immortals like Songqing Immortal and Huailong Palace Master, though they claimed to be half-step immortal kings, were far from being an actual tribulation-transcending celestial king. Songqing Immortal had passed the mental and soul tribulations, and his soul will was strong, but he was effortlessly toyed with by Lin Yuan, trapped in an illusionary realm without his knowledge. Of course, this was also because Lin Yuan was not an ordinary tribulation-transcending celestial king, but even the most common tribulation-transcending celestial king could deal with a half-step immortal king. With just a thought, "It's over there." Songqing Immortal immediately pointed out a location. Being a longtime rival of Huailong Palace, he naturally knew the exact location of their lair. The only issue was that Huailong Palace relied on the core water channels of the Zhejiang domain, and even if a group of half-step immortal kings besieged it, they couldn't overcome it, making it as secure as a fortress. Therefore, even though Songqing Immortal knew the location of their lair, there wasn't much he could do about it. In the large-scale battles between successive generations of Huailong Palace and Daoud Immortal Sect, even if Daoud Immortal Sect managed to repel Huailong Palace with the help of Shenwang Hall, it was hard to inflict real heavy damage on them, as those dragon-blooded true immortals would simply hide inside Huailong Palace whenever they found themselves losing. It was akin to standing on invincible ground. "Martial Ancestor, there's no need for you to go personally. Just grant a celestial king's decree, and I can take it to Huailong Palace." Songqing Immortal hesitated for a moment before speaking in a low voice. The celestial king's decree contained the breath of an immortal king, impossible to imitate, symbolizing the will of a certain immortal king. When the decree arrives, it's as if the immortal king himself has arrived. Huailong Palace, even with audacious courage, would not dare to defy the celestial king's decree. Although the Zhejiang domain was the dragon transformation land of a tribulation-transcending dragon king from many ages ago, all water tribe dragon descendants within the Zhejiang domain were, in theory, descendants of that dragon king. But who knows how many tens of thousands of years ago that old tale had taken place, and whether it was true or false remained unclear. Even if that dragon king did exist, he wouldn't risk offending another tribulation-transcending celestial king over a trivial matter. "No need for such trouble." Lin Yuan glanced at Songqing Immortal and said indifferently, "Simply apprehend him." Having said that, Lin Yuan raised his right hand. Taiji forces of black and white intertwined at his fingertips, causing the space to distort slightly, and just one look at it gave Songqing Immortal a splitting headache. It was too profound. It was too complex. With just the action of Lin Yuan's raised hand, Songqing Immortal felt that the spatial mysteries he'd comprehended all his life were all contained within it, and they occupied only 1/10,000th or even 100,000th of the overall mystery. The remaining spatial profundities were far beyond Songqing Immortal's reach. Has Martial Ancestor's mastery of spatial profundity actually reached this level? Songqing Immortal was astounded within his heart, but no matter how painful his headache became, he still fixed his gaze on Lin Yuan's raised right hand. By observing a little longer, might there be a chance for enlightenment? Under Songqing Immortal's watchful eye, Lin Yuan's raised right hand moved towards the direction he had just indicated, palm facing down, and lightly made a grabbing motion. Zhejiang Domain. Huailong Palace. The Zhejiang Domain consisted of 9 great rivers, each running through dozens of great realms before all converging within the Zhejiang Domain. Because of this, the Zhejiang Domain held a unique advantage, serving as the sacred land of the water tribe. Huailong Palace was a power forged by dragon descendants, connected to the core water channel of the entire Zhejiang Domain. To breach Huailong Palace, one would have to break through the core water channel of the entire Zhejiang Domain. It was this advantage that allowed Huailong Palace to thrive for millions of years. Even if they weakened at times, it didn't affect the overall situation, as they have always been one of the dominating powers of the Zhejiang Domain. Inside Huailong Palace, the Huailong Palace Master who had passed the bodily tribulation looked at the single-horned man before her, and said with an icy voice, "Heavenly Dragon Nest also desires the essence of heavenly water?" Heavenly Dragon Nest was also an overlord-level power in the Zhejiang Domain, on par with Huailong Palace. Strictly speaking, it was on par with the current Huailong Palace. Before the palace master had passed the bodily tribulation, Huailong Palace was slightly inferior to Heavenly Dragon Nest. Indeed, Dragon Lord has agreed to help you fully secure that strand of essence of heavenly water, but my Heavenly Dragon Nest wants half, said the single-horned man. Half! The Huailong Palace master's face showed no expression. Her mind, however, was contemplating. Having passed the bodily tribulation, her strength had greatly increased, and she was confident she could repel Dowd Immortal Sect, and even Shenwang Hall behind them, with some confidence. But it was always better to be safe than sorry. The importance of the essence of heavenly water was well understood by Huailong Palace, Dowd Immortal Sect, and even more so by Shenwang Hall. The three major forces of Shenwang Domain would definitely do everything to prevent her at all costs. They might even call friends and gather other half-step immortal kings from different great realms. In such a scenario, she would still feel some pressure. If she could join forces with Heavenly Dragon Nest. The Huailong Palace Master had already made her decision in her mind. In the past, Heavenly Dragon Nest had also approached her for cooperation, similarly expressing the intention to share half of the essence of heavenly water, but she flatly refused. Because at that time she had not passed the bodily tribulation, and her combat power was inferior to that of Heavenly Dragon Nest's Dragon Lord. If they cooperated rashly, she might end up having her palace swallowed by them. But now things were different. Having passed the bodily tribulation, she was not weaker than the Dragon Lord of Heavenly Dragon Nest. The cooperation between the two was on a nearly equal footing. 20%. The Huailong Palace Master said directly. Chapter 468. 2/10 is too low, said the Unicorn Man, his face somewhat unsightly. In the end, the two parties decided to split the essence of the heavenly water, with Huailong Palace taking 6/10 and the Heavenly Dragon Nest taking 4/10. With our two great forces joining hands, that Dowd Immortal Sect, that Shenwang Domain, are nothing but chickens and dogs, the Unicorn Man said with a smile on his face. The Huailong Palace Master was also in a good mood. Although he had given away 4/10 of the essence of the heavenly water for nothing, with the promise of the full support of the Heavenly Dragon Nest, the confidence of Huailong Palace greatly increased, enough to deal with the oppression from the surrounding great realms' half-step immortal kings. Just as the Unicorn Man was about to return to the Heavenly Dragon Nest to report the matter to the Dragon Lord, his expression suddenly changed. The Huailong Palace Master did the same, abruptly looking up to the sky. They saw the vast and boundless sky dimming unexpectedly. It wasn't dimming. It was a huge hand, black and white, that had enshrouded the entire Huailong Palace. Who dares to be so presumptuous in front of my Huailong Palace? One by one, the true immortal-level dragon descendants soared into the sky, attempting to shatter the hand that blocked out the sun. However, their true immortal-level destructive spells fell on that enormous hand, failing to stir even a ripple. Thunderous booms. The enormous hand slowly descended, its fingers beginning to close, as if it was about to lift the Huailong Palace covering hundreds of thousands of miles. The sound of rushing water. The Huailong Palace Master transformed into a 10,000-foot true dragon directly, and the terrifying bloodline power suppressed all sides, hurtling towards the giant hand. A half-step immortal king who had transcended the bodily tribulation was naturally adept at fighting, not to mention possessing a true dragon bloodline. Such a strike, even a half-step immortal king like the Zhangqing Immortal would not dare to confront it head-on, choosing instead to flee far away. However, in the face of the slowly descending enormous hand, the full-force blow of the Huailong Palace Master had no effect at all, not even slightly delaying the hand's descent. From a great distance away, one could see that the entire Huailong Palace was not even a tenth of the size of the giant hand. The Huailong Palace Master, a half-step immortal king true dragon, appeared like a mere insect in front of it. This is bad. The Huailong Palace Master's face drastically changed, turning back into human form, attempting to retreat explosively, to leave the range of the giant hand's shadow. The fact that her full-force strike could not shake the hand at all made her realize she had no chance of stopping the hand. Thunderous booms. The Huailong Palace Master tried to use the power of space to teleport, but found that within the range of the hand, space had solidified, making it extremely difficult to even fly normally, let alone teleport. Whoosh! Realizing this, the Huailong Palace Master didn't hesitate to return to the Huailong Palace below. At this point, the only option was to resist the heavenly hand using the palace that connected to the core water vein of the Zhejiang domain. A series of cracking sounds. The heavenly giant hand continued to tighten, and one by one, the barriers formed by the water veins shattered, powerless to resist. Finally, the entire Huailong Palace was directly uprooted by the giant hand. The hum of spatial energy. The heavenly giant hand and the abducted Huailong Palace vanished. They left behind a huge crater hundreds of thousands of miles wide, which existed where the dominating force of the Zhejiang domain, Huailong Palace, once stood. A moment later, a man in a golden dragon robe appeared outside the huge crater. Eyes wide and mouth agape, he looked at everything in front of him. What happened? How could the Huailong Palace have disappeared? This man in the golden dragon robe was none other than the Dragon Lord of the Heavenly Dragon Nest. The instant the heaven-covering giant hand appeared, its residual waves were the first to alert him. So he was the first to arrive. But upon arrival, he witnessed a scene he would never forget in his lifetime. How could such a massive Huailong Palace disappear right under the nose of the Zhejiang domain? How is that even possible? The disbelief of the golden-robed Dragon Lord was palpable. The Huailong Palace was merged with the water vein. An attack on the Huailong Palace was equivalent to attacking the core water vein of the Zhejiang domain. Just this fact alone was something that a Unity Path stage true immortal could not achieve, nor could a half-step immortal king. Not to mention uprooting the entire Huailong Palace in such a short period. It was utterly unbelievable. Tribulation transcending celestial king. The golden-robed Dragon Lord's thoughts quivered. The only being capable of doing this was the high and mighty tribulation-transcending Celestial King. In the core of Dongyuntao Province's great realm, where Celestial King's artifacts were used for suppression, relying solely on Celestial King's artifacts might indeed breach Huailong Palace, but was also not enough to do so as crisply and cleanly as it had happened now. Has Huailong Palace offended a tribulation-transcending Celestial King? Fear gripped the heart of the golden-robed Dragon Lord, for as one of the dominant forces of the Zhejiang domain, if he had offended a tribulation-transcending Celestial King, would it potentially implicate the Zhejiang domain? Or even implicate his own heavenly dragon nest? Since that mysterious tribulation-transcending Celestial King could cause such a grand Huailong Palace to disappear, it indicated that he could make the heavenly dragon nest disappear as well. In essence, there was no difference between Huailong Palace and the heavenly dragon nest. The only variation was their locations. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One true immortal after another from the Zhejiang domain appeared before the huge pit. Looking at the dark chasm, their hearts turned cold. The conclusions drawn by the golden-robed Dragon Lord could also be inferred by most true immortals, for to render Huailong Palace so powerless, incapable of any struggle, only the tribulation-transcending celestial kings who overlooked the spirit realm could do that. What should we do? Which celestial king did Huailong Palace actually offend? This Huailong Palace really deserves to die. Offending a celestial king is bad enough, but what if it implicates us? No way, no way. I've decided to relocate to another great realm. The Zhejiang domain is too dangerous now, under the watch of a certain celestial king. I'm also relocating. Let's do it together. The true immortals of the Zhejiang domain conversed among themselves, and many were planning to abandon their nests that they had operated for many years within the Zhejiang domain. Although living in the Zhejiang domain had been quite comfortable, what did that comfort amount to when compared with their own lives? They certainly did not wish to one day disappear suddenly like Huailong Palace did. Outside the martial temple hall, the Zongqing immortal intently watched Lin Yuan's outstretched right hand. Palm face downwards he gently grasped. The next moment, Lin Yuan drew back his right hand, and the palm, previously facing downward, was now facing up. The Zongqing immortal blinked his eyes, and suddenly realized that Lin Yuan's previously empty palm now somehow held a palace. The palace was extremely exquisite, and subtly terrifying powers flowed between the eaves and walls of the palace. This palace, Why does it look so familiar? The Tsongqing immortal's mind couldn't quite catch up, only feeling that the palace that had appeared in Lin Yuan's palm was strangely familiar. He had definitely seen it somewhere before. Roar! A series of tiny roaring sounds emerged from within the palace. Inside the palace, several tiny worms were trapped, as if bound by an invisible force, never able to burst out of the palace's confines. The Tsongqing immortal's eyes widened the more he looked. If this palace were to be magnified 1,000,000,000 times, and those tiny worms as well, one would find that this palace was exactly the same as the Huailong Palace. And those tiny worms turned out to be the true immortals of dragon descent from Huailong Palace, especially that white worm, which, in terms of size and presence, surpassed all other worms by a great deal. It was none other than the bodily tribulation transcended master of Huailong Palace. Once, this half-step immortal king who had been such a headache for the Tsongqing immortal and even considered a great concern by the Shenwang Hall, was now trapped within the palace, like a true reptile. The Tsongqing immortal's gaze was vacant. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, a phrase Lin Yuan had said earlier, "Just directly capture it." At the time, the Tsongqing immortal thought Lin Yuan planned to send his followers to capture the core dragon descendants of Huailong Palace to be questioned. As a tribulation-transcending celestial king, Lin Yuan must have gathered some trusted subordinates. With the addition of several celestial kings' artifacts and other means, pressuring the many dragon descendants of Huailong Palace to surrender should not be a problem. However, the Tsongqing immortal was also puzzled. This action did not seem as swift as personally delivering Lin Yuan's celestial king's decree to command Huailong Palace. But since it was the martial ancestor's will, the Tsongqing immortal dared not ask too much. However, upon seeing that miniature Huailong Palace in Lin Yuan's hand, the Tsongqing immortal realized that Lin Yuan's "just directly capture it" meant exactly what the words suggested, without any implication or metaphor. He captured the entire Huailong Palace, the multitude of true immortal dragons, with a single grasp. Chapter 469 Immortal King's Demeanor. Within the Huailong Palace, numerous true immortal dragon descendants were filled with fear. After the initial confusion, these dragon descendants realized that the entity taking action against them was very likely a certain tribulation-transcending celestial king. If not a tribulation-transcending celestial king, who else could effortlessly suppress dozens of true immortal dragon descendants, as well as the half-step immortal king, the Huailong Palace master who had passed the bodily tribulation, as if lifting a light object? If not a tribulation-transcending celestial king, who could ignore the core water veins of the Zhejiang domain, treat the million-mile-large Huailong Palace as a plaything, and grasp it in the palm? Palace Master, when did we offend an immortal king? Yes, Palace Master, what exactly happened? A tribulation-transcending celestial king, what kind of being is that, and why would they bother to take action against ants like us? One after another, the true immortal dragon descendants looked toward the Huailong Palace Master, asking anxiously. Although they were all trapped within the Huailong Palace, unable to go out, basic communication was still possible. The Huailong Palace Master's expression was gloomy as she scanned the frightened true immortal dragon descendants. Her brows involuntarily furrowed deeply. How would she know when the Huailong Palace had offended a tribulation-transcending celestial king? Although the Huailong Palace acted domineeringly, it knew whom to target. Beings or powers with potential backing from an immortal king were definitely not to be offended but were well provided for instead. Which immortal king is it? Although the Huailong Palace Master was also afraid, she realized that fear was meaningless. If the immortal king truly wanted to kill them, none of the dragon descendants would likely survive. The Huailong Palace Master looked up toward the outside of the Huailong Palace. She immediately saw the colossal figure looming over them. The million-mile-large Huailong Palace was merely 1/10 the size of the figure's palm. Compared to this immense being, the Huailong Palace Master felt incredibly insignificant, unable to even fully look up at Lin Yuan's complete form. This must be the immortal king who took action against my Huailong Palace. The Huailong Palace Master had her suspicions. The other true immortal dragon descendants also saw Lin Yuan, but being too close, They couldn't see him in full, only confirming that this immortal king had a human form. Having a human form didn't necessarily mean belonging to the human race. Great immortal king, all beings of the Huailong Palace are willing to submit. The Huailong Palace master immediately said with utmost respect. She understood that the fate of the entire Huailong Palace depended on the whim of this mysterious immortal king before her. Submit. Lin Yuan smirked slightly. He then looked at the Tsangqing immortal beside him. What do you think? How do I see it? The Tsangqing immortal was trembling with fear, unsure why Lin Yuan was asking him at this time. That is. The Huailong Palace master looked to the side and immediately saw the Tsangqing immortal. Although to them he too was a monstrous figure, the perspective offered by the distance allowed them to vaguely make out his features. Is that Tsangqing? The Huailong Palace master's heart turned cold. Having warred with the Dao Immortal sect for so many years, the Tsangqing immortal was all too familiar with her, and naturally the Huailong Palace master was also very familiar with Tsangqing. Yet the more so, the more desperate the Huailong Palace master felt. The enmity between the Huailong Palace and the Dao Immortal sect was too significant. They had fought for hundreds of thousands of years, causing countless casualties among their forces. Now that the Huailong Palace had fallen into the hands of the Tsangqing immortal, could there be any good outcome? Forget it. I'll decide. Lin Yuan noticed that the Tsangqing immortal dared not make a decision and his thoughts shifted slightly. In the palm of his hand, the Huailong Palace began to disintegrate. Every substance, whether it was living or non-living, was reduced to the most basic origin source of essence. Eventually, it formed an essence pill the size of a thumb. Even for Lin Yuan, the essence pill refined from all the true immortal dragon descendants of the Huailong Palace, including the palace master, who was a half-step immortal king that had passed the bodily tribulation, as well as the palace itself, had an inconsequentially small effect. Although the Tsangqing immortal dared not make a decision, Lin Yuan could still sense his intentions. That was to eradicate future troubles. Moreover, the Huailong Palace had significant karma with Jun Dongjin, as the former had severely wounded the latter, reducing his chances of breaking through to the Unity Path stage. So Lin Yuan never had any intention of sparing the Huailong Palace. The Huailong Palace is no more. The Tsangqing immortal looked dazed, not from pity or sympathy, but because the Huailong Palace, with hundreds of thousands of years of heritage, had come to such a dramatically abrupt end. The power of the martial ancestor. The Tsangqing immortal stealthily glanced at Lin Yuan's silhouette, growing ever more trembling inside. Above all, if an immortal king were to take action against the Huailong Palace, he indeed could achieve what Lin Yuan had done, breaking through numerous barriers, seizing the entire Huailong Palace. Various descriptions collected by the Dao Immortal sect about tribulation-transcending celestial kings could corroborate this. But the precondition was that this tribulation-transcending celestial king must be nearby the Huailong Palace, and not too far away. Only at such proximity could the full might of a tribulation-transcending celestial king be exhibited. The farther the distance, the more dissipated the power of the same strike becomes. Not to mention that Lin Yuan was across two great realms when he effortlessly summoned the entire Huailong Palace. This involves not merely an issue of distance, but rather an insight into the essence of heaven and earth, along with mastery over the mysteries of space. In general, Lin Yuan's power seemed somewhat exceeding the standard, surpassing the limits of what a normal tribulation-transcending celestial king could achieve. The Huailong Palace master from beginning to the end had no clue that she and the entire Huailong Palace had instantly traversed billions of miles to Martial Temple, which is why she thought Lin Yuan was a tribulation-transcending celestial king. But the Tsangqing immortal saw everything clearly. The Huailong Palace was originally located in the Zhejiang domain, yet Lin Yuan had easily captured it. The little one from back then, upon our next meeting, not only became an immortal king but also within the ranks of immortal kings, can be considered. Chapter 470. Tsangqing immortal felt emotional and didn't know how to describe Lin Yuan. Whether it was an ordinary immortal king or a supreme immortal king, for him the difference was not significant, as either way they were beings he couldn't look up to. As for the destruction of Huailong Palace, just speak the truth outwardly, Lin Yuan said indifferently. The meaning of this statement was that there was no need to hide that the mysterious immortal king who destroyed Huailong Palace was the martial ancestor. This decision was made by Lin Yuan after careful deliberation. As with his current strength, there was absolutely no need to hide his identity. Revealing part of his strength had many benefits. One was to greatly promote the martial Tao cultivation system, to let more cultivators embark on the path of the martial Tao. A cultivation system where the peak combat power is a true immortal compared to one where the peak combat power is an immortal king, belongs to entirely different concepts. As the martial ancestor equal to a tribulation-transcending celestial king, Lin Yuan, without saying more, at least proved that martial Tao is also a path that reaches to the heavens. Second, Lin Yuan had always wanted to contact the other tribulation-transcending celestial kings of the spirit realm, but these celestial kings were either completely untraceable or too far away. Since that was the case, Lin Yuan decided to reveal his strength and actively attract those celestial kings to come to him. Yes, Songqing Immortal said respectfully. Passing a message for the Daoed Immortal sect was not a difficult task. The destruction of the Huailong Palace caused a huge stir in the entire Dongyun Tao province, and even the nearby provinces were shaken by the news. It wasn't that the Huailong Palace had a huge influence. In fact, even if the Huailong Palace had obtained the essence of heavenly water, it still would have been hard for it to compare with the core domains of a province. The reason Huailong Palace caused such a big commotion was entirely because the being who acted against Huailong Palace was almost certainly a tribulation-transcending celestial king. The emergence of a tribulation-transcending celestial king could completely shake province after province, sparking discussions like a tsunami. Who exactly was the celestial king that took action? I'm also curious. It's just the Huailong Palace. A celestial king would just need to say the word, and I'd personally go to destroy it. Why would a celestial king need to act personally? In Dongyun Tao province, we finally have another celestial king. In the Shenhuang domain, Dongyun Tao province, as well as many other provinces, numerous true immortals were abuzz. This was about a celestial king after all. True immortals at the peak of the Unity realm, after centuries, would only have hoped to see one or two celestial kings if they traveled across 3,000 provinces. While numerous forces discussed the origins of that mysterious celestial king, a force from Shenhuang domain named Daoed Immortal Sect publicly declared that the mysterious celestial king who destroyed the Huailong Palace was none other than the ancestor of the martial temple. The news spread like a hurricane. The true identity of a tribulation-transcending celestial king. What crucial information this was. The ancestor of the martial temple? I have some impression of the martial temple, a cultivation system more focused on forging the physical body, and its strongest should only be comparable to a true immortal. A cultivation system like that, capable of producing a celestial king. Is that real? A martial temple limited to inside a city actually has a celestial king presiding over it. It shouldn't be fake. Even with immense gall, the Daoed Immortal Sect wouldn't dare to fabricate the identity of a celestial king, right? Although many true immortals had doubts about the information, that the mysterious celestial king came from the martial temple, none dared to openly object. Absolutely joking. You might object to other great realm forces. What can they do to you, after all, separated by a great realm? Even if they were half-step celestial kings, they would be unable to reach you. But to publicly doubt a celestial king, across 3,000 provinces, even the most desolate places, if you run far enough, still cannot block a celestial king's malice. No more. I'm heading to Shenhuang domain to pay a visit to that martial ancestor, a being on par with a celestial king. Me too. If the martial ancestor agrees to accept me as a disciple, I'm willing to forsake all my cultivation and follow the path of martial Tao cultivation. Accept you as a disciple? Do you not look in the mirror at yourself? That's a celestial king-level powerhouse adopting a disciple. Many true immortals from dozens of nearby provinces began heading towards Dongyun Tao province. True immortals at the peak of the Unity realm, the hope of meeting a celestial king was through such an occurrence, a celestial king revealing traces at a certain place, attracting numerous other true immortals to come from thousands of miles away. Compared to the true immortals drawn by reputation, Numerous lower-level cultivators were even more thrilled. The Martial Tao cultivation system can actually produce celestial king-level powerhouses? Just what I need. My spirit root aptitude is lacking. My potential in the immortal path limited. I've decided, I'm going to the Martial Temple to ask for apprenticeship. Yes, the Martial Tao cultivation system is home to immortal king-level powerhouses. Becoming a Martial Tao cultivator is far superior to joining those forces, most of which have never had an immortal king-level powerhouse. Martial Temple. Many Martial Tao cultivators seemed bewildered. What? Our martial ancestor not only returned, but also became an immortal king-level powerhouse and casually destroyed the Huailong Palace. This. Many cultivators who had just joined the Martial Temple suddenly felt as if blessings had fallen from the sky. Originally joining the Martial Temple meant they could not compete with the disciples of the Tao Immortal Sect and the Shenwang Hall. But now it should be those disciples licking their wounds, shouldn't it? Outside Xianyao City, Jun Haiqiu, Jun Nangong, and Jun Yunshuan, 3 outstanding descendants of the Jun family, finally arrived at Xianyao City. Our Wuji ancestor became an immortal king? Jun Haiqiu and the others looked at each other. They weren't Songqing immortal. They had taken quite some time to get to Xianyao City from the Tao Immortal Sect. However, en route, they had received the news that the martial ancestor was now an immortal king-level powerhouse. Wuji ancestor, who disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years, has reappeared as an immortal king-level powerhouse? Why do I feel like I'm dreaming? The 3 descendants of the Jun family felt that happiness came too suddenly, too intensely, and was somewhat hard to bear. They had imagined Wuji ancestor to be very strong. After all, they had heard legends about him from childhood, but they thought he would be on par with the Zongqing immortal at most. As for an immortal king, they never considered it. If it were easy to reach the status of an immortal king, the spirit realm's 3,000 Tao provinces wouldn't have so few immortal kings. Has Wuji ancestor become an immortal king, and might not want to see us? Jun Haiqiu asked hesitantly. That was an immortal king, high above all, overlooking the 3,000 Tao provinces. No matter what, he is still our ancestral patriarch of the Jun family. We should pay him a visit. Jun Nangong hesitated briefly, then made a decision. Now that they were in Xianyao City, even if they couldn't meet him, they still had to try. The 4th heaven. A purple-robed elder suddenly stopped. He glanced at the location of Dongyun Tao province below. Unexpectedly, even in such a remote Tao province, a fellow Taoist has emerged. The purple-robed elder was also a tribulation-transcending celestial king. The vast spirit realm had so few tribulation-transcending celestial kings that it was a rare occasion to see a fellow Taoist, naturally stirring his intention to visit. Martial ancestor. I've not heard of this title before. Seems to be a newly ascended immortal king. The purple-robed elder surmised internally. The powerful immortal kings, such as the Supreme Immortal King, revered across the 3,000 Tao provinces, even other immortal kings must display sufficient reverence. Martial ancestor? The purple-robed elder, who considered himself well-informed and well-connected, had never heard of an immortal king by this title. Therefore, he believed it was a very reasonable guess that this martial ancestor had only recently ascended to the tribulation transcendence stage. Whoosh! The purple-robed elder appeared in an instant outside Xianyao City, stopping at a distant mountaintop. Let me see what kind of presence this newly ascended immortal king has. The purple-robed elder's eyes faintly emitted a purple light. After ascending to the tribulation transcendence stage, an immortal king's life begins to affect his surroundings, even linking with the heaven and earth of the spirit realm, hence revealing certain phenomena. Such phenomena, having no concrete form, are hard to observe. But the purple-robed elder cultivated a secret technique that could capture these kinds of immortal king phenomena to some extent. If it's a newly ascended immortal king, the phenomena should be small. Those veteran immortal kings, even the supreme immortal king, just their own phenomena can stir the 9 heavens. While thinking, the purple-robed elder observed the position of Xianyao City. The longer one cultivated during the tribulation transcendence stage, the stronger they became, the greater their influence on their surroundings. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.